everybody? Welcome back to another episode of Don't Give Up Shit Podcast. This is episode 73. Today, I've been meaning to do this for a while. I'm recording with Chief Christina DeRienzo, and I hope I pronounced it right. She pronounces it once during the thing, and I meant to ask, so just to make sure I got it right. But she's famously known as the TikTok chief in Navy circles anyway. Obviously much more than that, and it was something that, so on Goats After Dark, Rev 3, which was episode 72, we got into a little bit of it at the beginning of the episode because people kept asking, like, are you ever going to talk about the TikTok chief? And it was something that I got a lot going on right now, and usually I'm extremely thorough in my research, and I kind of I take my time to fully understand something before I talk about it. And this time, I'm disappointed to say that I didn't. When we talked about it on that Goats After Dark, as soon as we started talking about it, I kind of realized, and I said it on the episode, that I don't think we can really talk much more about it outside of the speculation that we did without having her side of the story and being able to talk to her, even if it was offline, to get a better understanding of it before we were able to kind of offer any kind of, I don't know, insight into the who, what, when, where, why, all that, whatever. Because that's what people wanted to hear is some kind of reaction. And I think it was almost like everybody wanted to hear me condemn it or hear other people condemn it and all this other stuff. And I talked about my initial reaction was negative to the part where it associated that song and that artist with the Cheese Mess, and that was about it. But then digging deeper, which is kind of what we do here, I learned a lot about the human behind the thing that everybody saw. Right, there's a lot more to even just what she does on TikTok, let alone what she's about, the type of human she is, the type of chief she is. And I'm really glad that we got to do this, because I'm really glad that I can now say that, I know Chief DeRienzo and I'm a big fan of hers. She's awesome. She's a really good human and a good chief. And I think you'll get that from this interview, or discussion rather, but I kind of, I just want to get into it. I want to let her, the whole point of this was to let her get her side of the story out and to help me and everyone else fully understand exactly why that became this big viral Navy video, and kind of how she arrived at making it and why, and the story behind it and everything else. And no one's, I guess, given her the ability to do that quite yet, even though she talked a little bit about it on TikTok. But we got to do a pretty long form discussion talking about just that. And here it is. So we already talked once, but before we recorded, just to kind of get through the story and get to know each other a little bit better. But this is so obviously I started recording the one podcast, and it was like we talked about, it was partway through. I was kind of like, I have no idea what I'm talking about. And so it got weird where it was like, we shouldn't even really be talking about this because I have no idea what I'm talking about, because it's it was just the type of thing that without talking to you, there's no way to really know what was going on. So, let's just start at the very beginning. Cause we talked about it a ton. So I kind of already know the answers to these questions, but I want you to be able to express it in the way that you want to as well. So let's just start at the beginning, and then I'll throw questions at you as we go.
Okay, for sure. So you just want me to talk about why
well, yeah, I mean, you can start with, I like to start with who you actually are and a little bit about your background and stuff first, and then we'll kind of roll into that.
Okay, for sure. So I'm Chief DeRienzo QMC type. I've been in now 13 years, combined active duty and reserves, currently serving on an active duty mobilization with the SBS community.
What's SBS for people that don't know? Because the first time we talked, I had no idea.
Shore battle space community. So security.
Gotcha.
But I spent most of my reserve time with CRS community Mesron, CRS Mesron. They go back and forth every other year. And then I was on a DDG 101, the USS Gridley, for my active duty time when I first joined. And I've been a QM my whole time. I've been in the Navy, got out, went reserves. I'm currently a full-time police officer. And I've been doing that for 7 years. So, and then I've done corrections too before that.
So the security thing's not even that weird, really. It's like kind of what you do already.
Yeah, that's kind of why I got the call to come out here. Just because of my background.
I was gonna ask if that was why. It was like it's a pretty good fit. Yeah,
it's mainly MAs out here. A few other rates that get to come over and work with the MAs and work out of rate, but yeah, the captain just knew me from previous experiences with each other and called and asked me if I wanted to do this MOB.
And you're a big bad SEL now too. We won't get into the adventures of SEL, but yeah, I've been there. I did it at an A school, and it's a super interesting experience.
It really is. And it kind of got thrown at me. I was not expecting it.
Yeah.
So I came over to being because I'm with TAC Round 11 right now. And I came over to be an LCP over there. And then literally the next day I got told, no, you're going to be SEL. I was like, oh. Okay.
Yeah, that's usually how that goes.
So,
like I got to the A school with no idea what I was going to do. And then we had a master chief there, but he had a bunch of medical issues and he was going to retire. And then it just kind of turned into like, hey, you're an SEL as a chief. Figure it out. I'm like, all right. So that's pretty much what happened. So yeah, talk about first, like, because part of the context that I didn't have, and I went back and watched like all your other, not all of them, but like I watched a lot of your other TikTok things, to get an idea of like, because somebody had told me that you had a bunch of other videos, and I was like, oh, well, what are those all about? So talk to me about how you got started doing it and what your like kind of goals were as far as the actual videos themselves, because what I was surprised by was how like sailor centric they are, and it's all focused. It's like Q&As where you're answering questions, trying to help sailors out and stuff like that. So,
originally TikTok was not something that I was trying to do. I just started it up with my girlfriend's daughter. Of course, you know, she's young, so we had made a TikTok together, and I happened to be in my khakis in that one, and I started getting questions from sailors.
Yeah.
A lot of them were just, hey, either the ones that are, hey, I'm joining the Navy, hey, I'm going to boot camp, I just got out of boot camp, those questions. So I started doing these lives on, you know, like Mentor Mondays, right? Like I would go on live on Mondays and I would just be talking to sailors across the fleet, some that have been in forever, some being chiefs, and then, you know, a lot of them being like those new sailors that are just joining and getting out of boot camp and having all these questions and their fears and hoping for a little direction. Yeah. So I started doing that, and I started learning a little bit about TikTok and how you can reach more people, because I thought that, you know, I liked where it was going, reaching the sailors I was reaching. I wasn't reaching many, but the onesie twosies. You know, I was getting some that were serious questions like, hey, you know, I can't talk to my chain of command and I have this really big issue. Can you help me? Or, hey, I'm thinking about like, you know, hurting myself kind of stuff. And I need help. And so I wanted to start reaching more sailors and being approachable. I know growing up, you know, through the ranks, I was afraid of the chiefs, and, you know, you tried talking to some of them, most of them were unapproachable, and if you went to them with anything, you know, they kind of shooed you away, and I never really wanted to be that type of chief. And I did mention to you, I never wanted to be a chief. Yeah. So that's a whole nother story, but so I started making these other videos, because the more videos you produce, the more views you can get and the more people you could start reaching. So I started making videos, more funny ones, most of them making fun of the stereotypical chief. You know,
it's like poking fun at ourselves. Yeah. That's they're funny. The advancement exam one had me rolling. Like I was dying. I'm like that, because I've been that guy, like proctoring and also like the ESO running the exam, and like every part of that was true.
Right. You know, so I was like, let me make these videos, these coffee drinking, knife handing, by the book,
Yeah.
chief videos. And it's so funny because, you have the chiefs that are reaching out to you like, hey, that's some funny stuff because
Yeah.
that's true. And then you have the junior sailors that are like, hey, she's funny. And she's, humble enough to be like,
Right.
talk about her chiefs in the way that she is. You know what? I'm going to start talking to her. So,
Mm-hmm.
and then I started getting more views, more followers, and my mentoring lives started getting a lot more views and reaching a lot more sailors, and the content started changing to where it got to more serious stuff like, hey, I'm the whole Vanessa Guillen thing that was a big topic for a couple weeks on my feeds, with parents afraid that their children or daughters were joining, and then it was a whole thing. So I really started loving just being able to reach people. And I like being humorous. I've always been that person. I'm an extrovert. I like being the class clown and trying to make people laugh. I think laughter, it opens that door for, people to show themselves a little bit more too with you. So you make yourself a fool, then, people start to be a little more comfortable around you too. So I've always been that person. Even as a chief, I try to make my guys just comfortable, laugh during the times that obviously you can, but so that was me. So that's why I started all the TikToks and everything like that.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's what's crazy. So like, as we've talked, it's like at the beginning when I first saw the one that everybody flipped out about, right? The rapping,
the rack.
One. Yeah. The rack one. It took me, I'm so old, and I joke with my wife, I think I'm getting like early onset Parkinson's or something. Cause I say the wrong word sometimes, or like I've noticed recently, like I'll be holding something and my hand just stops working and it falls on the ground. I'm like, what is happening? Anyway, what I noticed was like at the very beginning when I saw that one, I had this reaction where at first I was emotional, like not like I had a huge problem with it, except for the association with, and I was just like, oh God, now it's like, you know what I mean? Like, cause I've spent a lot of time fighting a lot of perceptions that sailors have about chiefs, even though a lot of them we've earned as an organization, right? Like a lot of the stuff that you poke fun at, there's a reason why that's funny. There's a reason why that's a stereotype, because a lot of the times it's true, right? And that's the experience sailors have with chiefs. And so I've spent a lot of time trying to like, not debunk it, but like just explain why we are where we are as an organization, and why, like, while some of it is true, a lot of it is just you're perceiving something in a different way because of where you're at, and your viewpoint is different from my viewpoint, different from the CO's viewpoint, whatever. And I saw that and I was just like, no, I'm gonna have to like try to rehab this now. But then what was hilarious was I remember enough of like how I felt about it then, and then now having talked to you a whole bunch, it's like we're the same person almost. Like you did a lot of the same stuff for the same reasons and got the same like satisfaction and motivation to continue doing more out of doing the TikTok thing, even though you didn't expect to, that I did out of doing this podcast thing. And it's like, it's the same thing. It's like you're going out of your way to use this mechanism to try to help sailors. And that was the whole point from the very beginning. And so like when I compare it, and I told you this before, like when I compare it to like where I was when I first saw the video, I was just like, I feel like a piece of garbage. Like I feel really bad about like reacting in the way that I did, and then not having thought about like all of the different things that come along with that video going viral. And we'll talk about that, but not at looking at it like, hey, there's a human being behind that, and she's also a chief and a sailor, and hey, maybe I should ask how she's doing. Like I didn't think about that either. But like looking back at it now, I feel a lot differently about kind of how you arrived at where you were, and talk about like, so how the rack thing happened, like, because that was one of the things that not having been able to talk to you, I didn't really understand. And I feel like it's a lot of people it's like their reaction was probably based in that not understanding how you arrive at that place at all, and not understanding any context at all, because now understanding a lot of the context and you having explained the story to me, it makes a lot more sense. So just explain that part of it. Just like, like obviously you didn't go into this trying to go viral with that type of a video and get that type of a reaction. So like, how did we get there?
Definitely did not in a million years thought it was going to go viral. I even made the comment, because it actually was posted for about almost 3 weeks before it went viral.
Yeah.
I made the comment too. I was like, I was surprised that it didn't get more views than it did. Cause it's so funny because I have the text messaging TikToks that you saw, I'm sure. The text messages between the Chiefs and their sailors. And those get, several 100,000 views. And then this one had, I think maybe like 3,000 views. And I was like, that's kind of weird, because it was such a very common song. So I was like, whatever. I didn't even care though. I was like, all right, that's fine. But the way I made it, so I made the lyrics back in October when season started.
Mm-hmm.
My group of selectees kind of like motivated me a little bit. They were kind of having trouble with just being creative. And it just kind of motivated me to write. So I like to write on my off time. It's one of my hobbies, poetry usually, not raps. But I kind of just wrote it, and it just sat in my phone, and it sat. And then when season was ending, it was just ending, I was on ROM, and I was just motivated. When we go through season, and just like, it kind of like lights that fire under you again. Like you're remembering like all the heritage and just the fraternity, the camaraderie. You get
super gassed up to be a chief. Yeah,
you do. And I was like, you know what? I'm going to make this video, because I am super pride. I have a lot of pride being a chief. And we had talked about that too.
Right.
And I'm sure that might come up later in this, but I was like, you know what? I'm just going to make this little video. I'm stuck on ROM. I'm going to do it. And I had asked for a photo. I know, because everyone's like, where'd you get these photos from too? From other chiefs? Did I steal them? I asked for these photos on a Facebook page from that have all chiefs on it, female chiefs, and they were sending me video pictures. Did they know what the video was before I posted? No, they did not. So because they have also been getting a lot of heat too for their pictures being on my thing, and that really sucks, and I feel bad for that. So they gave me those photos. I made the video. I had sent it to several friends of mine who are chiefs prior to posting, and
to vet it and
I usually do that actually before most of them, except I think the text messaging one I go, but most of my videos I send out to other chiefs to see their reaction, to make sure that, hey, maybe something I don't see. And everyone's like, that's some funny stuff. Like,
everybody greenlit it.
And I posted it. It didn't, like I said, nothing happened. And then all of a sudden, 3 weeks later, I wake up in the morning, and I got like thousands of notifications literally in my Facebook and TikTok account. And, about 90% of them were not the best. And I was just getting tagged after tag after tag, and it just started to go sideways very quickly.
Yeah.
But when I made it, the intent, I know a lot of people are, I think one of the big parts that they don't like is like the knife handle in your face part. If you go back on all of my TikToks, the knife hand is like always out. It's actually like a little signature. So the only reason I did that was because it's almost like a signature in a lot of my TikTok videos.
And it's clearly satire. Like that was the one thing 100%. That when we talked about it, there were people like because I had seen some social media threads where people were talking about it, and they were like, basically they didn't like how you were portraying Chiefs. I'm like, it's a joke. Like, how do you not think this is a joke? Like, it's clearly satire. But like, there's other problems that I had with it. But like, I'm like, she's obviously not that person. Like, it's clearly comedy, without even having seen all the other videos, I was like, this is clearly a joke. Like she's making it's to be funny. Like she's not actually trying to get famous as a rapper. Like if anybody assumed that that's what that was about, like, wow.
Oh no.
Wow.
No.
It was clearly just meant to be funny, but
yeah, it was never meant to be a serious, like, most of my things, I think, like you mentioned, yes, we have a reputation. We things that we have done in our past as a mess follow us to today. And so some of those things, yes, I do make fun of. I think every chief is out there knife handing sailors and screaming and walking around in their khakis thinking they're super awesome. I don't think that they're like that. I don't. I just thought it was going to be something that people looked at and thought, man, that's a funny video that she got there. And
what's weird about it,
that must be very pride, like have a lot of pride.
And what's funny about it too is like that I feel like the same things that a lot of people are mad about are the things that are necessary for you to, like, even if it's not via social media or whatever, those are the things you need to do to kind of like break that stuff down. Cause I talk about like humanizing chiefs a lot, where it's like we create all these artificial divisions between us and junior sailors and then wonder why we're not approachable and wonder why they're not bringing us their problems. And it's like, if you are willing to kind of poke fun at yourself and you're willing to like create that type of like rapport where you're willing to have a conversation with your sailors where you're making fun of yourself or you're recognizing the flaws about chiefs and that, oh yeah, we are in fact fallible because we're human beings, like, which, shocker, everybody knows it's true. It's just like sometimes organizationally we like to pretend that it's not true. And it's stuff I talk about a lot and weirdly never get any blowback. And it's like, maybe I'm just not cool enough. Like I don't have a big enough following. I don't know. But like, there's a lot of chiefs listening to this and I've never gotten any negativity from it. Even on Reddit, like I've never had a chief lose their mind on me, which I was fully expecting to happen. And it just never did. So it's like, I feel like there's this weird thing where individually, cause you told me a story that if you want to share, cool. If not, I'll like stay real general, but, there's this thing that some people do, and I'm going to say people because it's like chiefs are just, it's a human organization, is like they believe one thing personally, but then when they're in a public position representing the organization, they act differently, right? So when I talk to chiefs individually, a lot of the things that I see as like things wrong with the mess, I almost get universal agreement where they're just like, yeah, no, we need to fix that and this, that, and the other thing. But then if it was a group or like if I was in a room full of chiefs and I ask an individual chief, hey, do you think this is broken? They'd be like, nah, it's fine. What are you talking about? Like, you're an idiot. You know what I mean? I'd probably get blowback in the correct setting, but it's like, I'm never in that setting. I'm always talking to chiefs individually. So I feel like, and I could be wrong, but I feel like that's why I get almost universal agreement, because like privately they hold the same views I do, but they don't want to be the one putting a microphone in front of their face and having that type of conversation. And so like you said, you told a story about like a chief that privately like flamed you for the video, but publicly when he was with other chiefs and then met you was like, I love your stuff. Like, oh my God,
yep,
you're that person. And it was just like, what? Like, it's bizarre, but I think it's just like a weird, I don't know, human insecurity or they need to be accepted by their peers or whatever. But
yeah, and I don't understand that. Like, I'm one of those people, if I'm gonna say something to you to your face or behind closed doors, I'm gonna say it to your face too. And that was just, I honestly, I don't think that he realized that I remembered who he was. I told you about a lot of the comments I was getting, and there's only like that little Facebook picture by it, but let me tell you, sometimes like certain comments, I could just remember the
like
face.
Burned in. Yeah.
Yep. And just to be able to like meet this person and everybody else is like, hey, I loved your video, blah, blah, blah. And then him to jump in and say, I loved your video too. And I'm like looking at him and I'm like,
did you though?
I know who you are, but I wasn't there to argue with nobody. So I was just like, oh, thanks. But that's what I tell a lot of people, and especially like even new chiefs. I'm like, I know everybody always says like trust the mess and stuff, but you still have to be careful. You still do.
Yeah. It's a human organization.
It is.
There's a lot of good stuff that comes out of the mess, but we can't only talk about the good stuff. And it's like, I was actually talking to a guy on Reddit yesterday where he was pointing out that maybe I don't talk about the value of the Chiefs season enough, where I'm only criticizing it. And I was like, yeah, maybe I get caught up in the stuff that needs improvement, because I feel like that's the stuff we need to be talking about. And I feel like I do talk about the value of it as well, but I'm like, maybe I spend too much time on the negatives. Like maybe I could talk more about the positives and stuff, but but it's like, I don't know. It's like, that's what I also feel like that's what needs to get talked about. What was the blowback like from, not just from like, cause I know we talked about all of it already, but the social media aspect from like just everybody that saw it, but also like your chain of command and everything, and like just whatever you actually want to get into.
Yeah. So, I'll start with my chain of command.
Okay.
So I mentioned I'm part of TACON 11, out in California. And I'm attached to Nosk North Island. So technically I have two different chains of command. So my direct chain of command at TACON 11, the active side, the active component, reached out to my SEL, who's on the reserve component. And he just said, hey, who, again, my SEL, he doesn't have social media like that. He's not on social media like that. So just reached out and said, hey, have you talked to Christina? You want to make sure she's okay, and kind of briefed him on what was going on. And I got the phone call, and his first question was, are you okay? And I said, yes. And we talked about the situation and everything that had been going on with not the text messages, but the messages over TikTok, Facebook, even Instagram, everything. And then after we had that discussion and he made sure I was okay, then the second part was, don't make any more rap videos. So I was like, the show. No, I got you. But so that was that chain of command. The second part was my NOSC CMC. He called me and he was like, hey, I got a couple messages from like Fleet Forces, a couple other people about your video. And I thought it was going to go sideways. I was like, oh, this is it.
Yep.
And he was like, and you know what? You didn't do anything wrong. I want to make sure you're okay. And generally he was just concerned for me. Cause he had also, again, another person not on social media. He was honestly just truly like amazing and comforting and reassuring that, I hadn't done anything wrong. He did, bring up the social media policy that we do have, asked me if I've read it, which I have, just because I do TikToks and I want to make sure that I'm not violating policies. So I had mentioned that I have, but I read it again just to make sure of everything and so we could say that we had that training also. And that was it. My chain of command main concern was just me and my mental status and make sure how I was feeling and make sure I was okay. Social media, however, I woke up that morning, like I mentioned, and I had a million different, really at first I saw that my TikTok, I was running late. I was checking into ECRC for the process of starting my mobilization. So I was running late. I saw that I had a couple messages on TikTok and I was like, why are people commenting on a 3-week-old video, especially because I had other videos previous, and that doesn't usually happen,
right?
Onesie twosies, but there was comments and they were very nice, but I was like, I don't got time for this. I ended up going into ECRC. It's a brick building, no service, my phone wasn't going off. And another chief had come up to me and was like, hey, are you okay? And I'm like, yeah, I'm fine. Why
wouldn't I be?
Yeah, what's going on? And you haven't seen Facebook? At that moment, got some service, checked Facebook, and oh my goodness, I had never seen that many notifications, probably in a year's time on my Facebook compared to that one moment. And I was just reading everybody had commented on this video, shared it. I think I saw it was shared over like 250,000 times, or viewed over 250,000 times. I was just like, oh no. I was like, this isn't what it was supposed to be. And you know, I had messages saying, you know, honestly, I don't know if it's okay for me to say it on your feed, like everything I had gotten.
Yeah, it's fine. You can say whatever you want, and if any of it's like cursing or anything, I can just bleep it out. So
I got you. Well, no, I'll censor the cursing. Okay. But you know, I had people telling me I want to kill myself. I was the reason why females get raped in the Navy, because I'm rapping to the WAP song. You know, that I'm setting the example for my junior females, also in the Navy. And again, if you haven't seen the video, I'm not on there naked or half naked or semi-naked. I have a hoodie on. Or
suggesting anything of the sort.
Yes, I have a hoodie on the whole time, and or khakis. But other than that, there's no inappropriate dancing or nothing. But it, you know, just hearing those things really started to get to me.
Yeah.
I had other branches reaching out, telling me, you know, how embarrassed they were for the Chiefs mess. And most of these comments that I was getting were from Chiefs.
Yeah.
And that was where I was the most shocked about, was because, you know, they teach this for brothers or sisters.
The most disappointing part for me.
Right.
When I heard that and you told me some of the other stories, that was.
Yeah. And, I had some junior sailors asking for my fans only page. That was interesting because I do not have a fans only page.
Yeah.
But junior sailors reaching out and being brave enough to even say those things was upsetting. I was like, wow, like this is where we're at. People who have no idea who I am, or even like my mental status. Like they don't know if I have depression, anxiety, you know, anything. And to tell me like you should kill yourself, that was like very just. I was shocked. I was completely just. I was hurt, and not even hurt to a point where like, you know, I was like, you know, oh, I don't want to do this anymore. No, I was hurt because I love being a chief so much that I could never imagine doing that to another chief, especially what we learned during season and what I've seen the mess being able to do and help each other out. And the mess that, when I made chief, I was mobilized immediately after. The mess that I technically, my first year as a chief, I was deployed, I grew up in. I could never imagine what I learned there. Now this is what I'm seeing. And it was two different worlds.
Yeah.
And it was just, it really broke my heart.
Yeah.
At the same time. Sorry, go ahead.
No, I'm just like disgusted. Like that's the stuff that I like, because it wasn't. I understand when I get flamed on Reddit because, and it's not like, doesn't happen all the time. I talk about it like it does. It doesn't happen all the time, but it happens. And when I do, I understand because Reddit's anonymous. Like there's not like you have that ability. You can be pretty, like brutally honest and like emphasis on brutal. Because it's a junior sailor's opportunity to take shots at a senior chief. I get it. Like I knew what I was getting into when I started posting the podcast on Reddit, and I was inviting it on purpose because I think that type of feedback is valuable, and I got thick skin, so I can take it. It's like it's your opportunity to take shots. Like I know it's coming. I know that you're just venting, and it's like I've got broad shoulders. It's fine. But then when I see like people that do it on Facebook, like where you got all these disgusting messages and it's like a profile picture and a name and the dude's wearing khakis, what planet are you living on?
Yeah.
Because just all that by itself, it's like when you stand a mirror up in front of that, all that by itself, like who's really the problem here? Like, is it me or is it you? Because that person is clearly broken, clearly has a warped sense of what being a chief is, what being a decent human being is. So it's just like, you've got worry about you. You've got so much there to keep you busy, clearly, by your, just demonstrated only by your behavior. Like, I don't even need to dig into what's actually going on to know that, like, you seriously need to focus on you and stop worrying about what I'm doing, whether or not you agree with it, whatever. But yeah, that's the most disappointing part for me, is that, and you said you did get a lot of Chiefs that reacted correctly and rallied around you. And I even told you, like, I reacted emotionally at first, and then I started thinking about it, and this is what I do with everything. Like, I react emotionally when it's something that gets me going like that. And I immediately am like, just shut up and think about it for like a week and calm down. And then once you've thought about it and like calm down, then you can like think about it, like detach, think about it rationally, and then form your opinion and do some research and talk to some people and then go from there. Because there's always a ton of stuff I don't know and that I'm not considering in that moment. But then, and like once I had done that, and then we started talking about it it was the Goats After Dark one, where we started talking about it, and then I immediately realized, like, we're not ready to talk about this because I need to talk to her, or we're just not going to talk about it, because there's no way for us to ever have any idea what the hell we're talking about without getting your side of the story. And then during that conversation is when I realized, like, that's when I started to feel like a giant piece of crap for not having thought about, like, of course you're getting inundated with a whole bunch of just like toxic crap on social media. And so how is that affecting you, and how are you doing? And why was that not the first thing I did? Like, why did I not message you and be like, how are you doing? Instead of like just waiting, number one. And then number two, thinking about like, man, I really need to talk to her so that I can understand it better. Like, who gives a flying about what I need or what I want or whatever in that moment? It's like, because clearly, based on the reaction and like how far and wide it was broadcast, like, of course there's, and I after reading the threads and like the Ask the Chief Facebook group and all this other stuff, and I went through that whole comment thread to try to get a feel for how other people were reacting to it, and it was pretty gross. And I'm just like, okay, yeah, so this is like the G-rated version of what she's got in her inbox right now.
Yeah. You know what? I was getting crap for probably days, but like you mentioned, the very first day, on the female chief side, it was crazy support. Yeah. And I have to say that, like, the support from our sisters was like, I could never imagine that ever being a thing. Like how much support I got from them, just reaching out, the messages, people coming over to my hotel to make sure I was okay. And, people like, hey, what are you doing today? You want to go for a walk? You want to go get some coffee? Do you want to talk? Just that support alone was,
I'm glad they carried
amazing.
Our water then.
Yeah, that was, making t-shirts and there's a rack teacher out there. You can't even tell it has nothing to do with, it has no chief anchors or anything on it. It says rack, and I said what I said, and that's what it says on it. So if you know, you know. And I mean, cool. it was there's stickers out there now and coffee cups, and they were just being so funny, supportive of it, and it was really cool. And then I slowly started getting like brothers reaching out. Good. And that was something I wasn't expecting, because most of those hate comments were from our brothers. I didn't have I think I saw maybe onesie twosies of our sisters, but it was really our brothers were coming hard for me in the paint. And but when I started getting some, man, there's just like, one of our brothers reached out on TikTok and he was like, hey, are you okay? And he found out what had happened. Oh my gosh. He took to Facebook, wrote this really long post about like, if you have a problem with somebody like that, like, F off, and just starting to see the support. And I still have constant like brothers that are still reaching out the same, I think they haven't just stopped.
I don't know why, but I think it's just like our brains work differently. Like, it took me a minute, and I feel like I'm a pretty empathetic dude that like thinks things through and stuff. And it took me a minute to just think to do it. And I'm kind of pissed at myself that it took me as long as it did to realize that, like, that's the first question that needs to be asked. You know what I mean? Like I was, and maybe if it was somebody I knew, I feel like that I would have defaulted to that. Like if you and I worked together, or I knew you through Chief stuff on base or whatever, like, then it would have been like more personal to me, which is still kind of stupid. But like, I think maybe my brain would have defaulted to that. Like, hey, my friend is in trouble, instead of, hey, like, I want to know what actually happened so I can like analyze this and get the leadership lessons learned out of it. Like, that can happen way later. Like, why is that a priority? It should have been, the first question should have been like a chief is getting like destroyed on social media by other chiefs. Like, I'm surprised. I'm surprised and disappointed in myself for not having that reaction first. Is like jumping on that Acid Chiefs thing and just flaming everybody for like being hypocrites. Like, hey, do you guys need to take a minute and read the mission, vision, and guiding principles? Like, you need me to read it to you because you're violating like all of it right now. And it's just like, yeah, it's gross.
That, you know, but like I said, there was so much support that it really overpowered all the
That's
negative.
Awesome.
And, you know, even, you know, there's junior sailors on social media that were, you know, making fun of my video, but not making fun of me being a chief. And, cause we all know I can't rap.
Yeah.
So.
Which was the point. Like, that's why it was funny. Part of why it was funny.
Yeah. But, you know, but why is it that a junior sailor can look at it and be like, hey, you know, she was joking.
Yeah.
It's a TikTok video.
They don't have part of their identity tied up in being a chief. That's why. Like, we all, because again, like, my first reaction, and I didn't have the same like visceral like rage reaction that a lot of people did, because I go out of my way to make sure my identity is not super tied up in being a chief. Like, I love being a chief, and I'm a Kool-Aid drinking true believer. Like, I panned around the room showing you all my collectible crap, and like
which was awesome.
I dork out really hard on a lot of this stuff, but I also know that like I'm me first. Like, this is a thing that I do. It's a big part of my life. It's really important to me, but it's not who I am. And I think me bringing who I am to the Chiefs mess is the way that I try to align things and keep it that way. But I think there's a ton of people that do it backwards, and a lot of their identity is tied up. So you get an emotional, like, angry reaction from those people about the Chiefs mess is being attacked, not like you're just trying to be funny or whatever. And I don't even think it would, like, again, like the comedy part of it, I don't even necessarily think that's what did it. I think it was like I had the same problem, like, association with that Cardi B song. That was it. That was the only problem that I had. I was just like, man, I don't want the Chiefs mess associated with Cardi B's WAP. But like, other than that, though, like, that was the one thing that I was just like, oh, God, we're going to have to fix that. But
so if I would have rapped a Star Spangled Banner, that probably would have been okay.
It would have been something. Yeah. Anchors Away. Yeah. We need to do a remix with Anchors Away. But like, that was the only thing where I was just like, really, we had to pick that song. Like, and it, again, talked about it. Cardi B is a thing, and it's not my thing, but it's like, whatever. If people personally enjoy her music, hey, great, whatever. I don't care. Like, I don't care what people do with their free time and what their personal tastes are and whatever. But like, when we get inside the professional confines of the Navy and the Chiefs mess and everything else, I was like, damn. But
gotcha. Yeah.
But I think the reason why it's like they didn't get past their lizard brain reaction of like, my clan is being attacked, you know, and they just like freaked out and not thinking about any of the other things, you know, which is obviously not the move, but
right.
Yeah.
It happened.
Yeah. And it's gross. What, like, so, I mean, you're kind of on the other side of it now, I would think. Has stuff kind of died down? Like, is you feeling like it's trending towards normal
now? So yes, I do feel like things are starting to slow down. People still do bring it up.
Yeah.
You know, it was our birthday a couple days ago,
Yep.
and I ran the birthday ceremony, if you want to call it that,
Yeah.
out here, and you know, just brought it up. I was like, "Hey, did you want to speak?" Or, you know, and they're like, "You're the famous one," you know, like. And it was a chief I hadn't met yet. It was, you know, because these chiefs just got out here, and I was like, dang, you know, damn.
You're never gonna
you know,
they're never gonna let that go. But as far as like just.
But the bad stuff, no.
Yeah.
It's stopped. Like
Oh, good.
I haven't seen any bad videos about me anymore, or comments or anything like that. I haven't made any of my funny videos recently, only just because, one, I'm super busy on deployment, and two, I was also waiting for things to kind of just like die down a little bit. And you know, I do still care about our reputation as chiefs, and I think that was probably the one thing that I did hurt me a little bit on my heart was, you know, some people were like, "You made the mess look bad. You made the mess look bad." I would never want to do that.
Yeah.
You know, there's plenty of chiefs out there that make our mess look bad.
Right.
And we all know that.
So far from being so, like, based on the reaction you got versus how, like, on a scale of severity, like, there's so much crazy stuff that other people do that just make the mess look like a clown show. And it's like, so on like the severity scale, you're like way down in the like mild green side. It's like, it's just because, and that was like one of the things that I want to talk to you about too, is like, it's because of the mechanism you used. It was like so easily shareable and so easy to also make fun of like chiefs and whatever, based on, it was like a perfect storm for social media, not like like there was even really misconduct at all, like maybe a poor choice here or there, but like not like obvious misconduct. Like there are some stories of like CMC level people like running from the cops and like doing all kinds of wild stuff that it's just like, come on, like this, like there's so many other examples, like so many other Navy Times covers I could hand people and just be like, really, this is the one that you're keyed up about? So that I'm not, it's whatever, but social media itself, because like we talked about at the beginning, like you started to leverage it based on the just questions you were getting from sailors as like a platform to chief, like just to take care of sailors. And then kind of based on what you saw happen, like the negative, like what could happen and the negative side of it, like how do you feel about, because I effectively use social media as a leadership development platform. Like the podcast is the platform, but then I to get the word out, to interact with people, like I use Reddit, Instagram, Facebook. That's really it.
No, not
I'm
TikTok?
not smart
No,
enough.
I'm just kidding.
So honestly, when I retire, I'm seriously considering it, because when I retire, I'll put my face on stuff. And just based on the reach and like how, because that like, and a lot of people are probably going to rag on me about this, about talking about potentially using it when I retire, but it's like, you have to consider it. Because I was talking to my nephew about it, and he was watching some video about like a mental health thing that resonated with him. And I was just like, on TikTok? Because in my mind, it's a clown show where everybody's just dancing all the time. Because I see like the commercials and stuff. And I'm just like, and he's like, yeah, there's that. But there's also a bunch of smart people on there using it for other things. And I was just like, of course there is. Like, it's got millions and millions of people on it. So then I was thinking about it, and I was just like, when I do retire, if I want to reach the maximum number of people possible, I always knew video was going to have to be a component of it, because it's so easily shareable. It's why your thing went so viral. It was so easy to get to people and to show them, like, people are going to have a better reaction to video and everything else. So then I was looking at him like, I might need to take this seriously, because like, again, like you were saying, you didn't even solicit it and you were reaching sailors. So it's like, clearly it's a platform they're on. And even as time passes, it's like it shifts. Like it used to be mostly Instagram was like with the kids that I had at A school, it was mostly Instagram. And then it went to Snapchat when I moved like on to the next boat. And then now it's TikTok, and in 5 minutes, it'll probably be something else. But like, continue to reach the refreshed new generation of sailors that are on their phones all the time, I'm gonna have to figure out what the gateway is to them. And right now it's TikTok. So it's like, I mean, like, you can laugh at it as this thing that people are just doing the silly dance things on, or you can understand that maybe there is a lot of like functionality there for reaching sailors. And it's like, that's the whole point. Like, that's what we're doing. And it's like, and we had a long-ish conversation about on the Goats After Dark one about like, well, I never needed to use social media to reach my sailor. And it's like, well, you didn't function in this generation either. Like, you're not. I was talking to chiefs that are functioning, and they were a little like more accepting of like, well, you know, especially having gone through all this COVID stuff, and we're working remotely and we're doing all these things. It's like,
right.
I feel like it's a tool, and it's one that maybe we're not pointing at an individual leader and saying, hey, you need to have a social media platform to reach your division or work center. But you see recruiters leveraging it. You see like people like you and I that are trying to use it as a platform to reach people. There's a ton of people that started podcasts during COVID, like video podcasts and all this other stuff, where they're trying to leverage it as a leadership development platform, but they're like a couple of platforms behind in a lot of cases, where it's like, even for me, it's like, if I had been doing video this whole time, I know that my reach would be way, way farther. I kind of put limiters on myself. Like, I don't want my face on it while I'm on active duty. But when I do retire, like, I think it's a really obvious like avenue for people. So like, how do you, that is a really long-winded way of getting to this question, but like, how do you feel about like social media stuff as a leadership development tool? And like, should we be using it? How should we be using it?
Of course I'm biased when I say yes, but but you know what, prior to TikTok and it getting to where it's at right now, in my life, and again, I feel like I've been neglecting it because of being on deployment, and it's a little hard, but I like I said, I love being a chief. I love talking to sailors in my department, not in my department. You know, I just like talking to them because they have a lot to say. And sometimes we're not always listening.
Right.
And when I started getting all these questions, of course, my first reaction, like an instant reaction, is, have you spoken to your chief? Like, have you talked to your chief? Like, your chain of command? Like, why are you reaching out to me? Like, those are my first, like, initial, like, in my head, in my heart reactions. Like, and I want to say these things. But then I look at the bigger picture of, this sailor is reaching out to somebody. They have no idea who I am. They just know that I wear khakis, I have anchors, and I knife hand and drink coffee. No, but you know, they're reaching out to me for a reason.
Right.
And I start looking at the bigger picture of like, well, if they're reaching out to me because they need help or they need guidance, like, who am I to say no and turn them away? Like, when first thing you learn is like, every sailor is your sailor. Yeah. And that's to include, you know, chiefs, officers, like everybody. I have officers on my account asking me questions, like young officers.
Yeah, so do I. I have a bunch of JOs that reach out.
And you know, all of them are our sailors, and we learn when we go through season, like, hey, take care of your sailors, take care of them. If they're coming to you, freaking be the chief. So I think that social media it's not going away, obviously, and it's only going to get probably crazier with the more apps, like you mentioned. It's probably going to, like, this minute it's TikTok, next second it'll be something else. And we need to start being able to be able to relate to our sailors, because if we're going to put up that wall between us and them, like, we're not going to be able to have an effective work environment, and the mission's going to fail, or, you know, mission's going to suffer, and our sailors are going to suffer. And we need to be able to, yes, I understand back in my day, like, or when I was going through the Navy, it's always going to be a thing, but we need to get past that. We have to. It's not our Navy anymore. we're leaving it to them.
Yeah.
So we need to be able to transfer what we know to them and relate to them and reach them somehow.
Yeah. And I think we are. I think so I was talking to the corpsman chief that did the recent Foundations episode. He's a pretty young chief so I did and I don't know what you've listened to, what you haven't, but I did the Rejected episode with him where he told his story about acceptance and all that stuff. And then I asked him, cause he's got a degree in organizational leadership and he's really into this stuff. And the reason he found me was because he was talking to people about starting a podcast, and he posted in this Chiefs group for corpsmen that hey, I see this problem. I want to address it. I was thinking about starting a podcast in this vein. What do you guys think? And a buddy of mine who's been on, another corpsman chief, he said, hey, have you listened to dguts before? And he goes, no, what's that? And that's how he found the podcast, because he's like, this is kind of what you're talking about. He's like, somebody's already doing it. And so he listened to the acceptance episode from Teaching the Creed, and it resonated with him. And then we told that whole story. But after that, I was like, hey man, you're talking about starting a podcast. Why don't you just do something with me? And so he started this foundation series where he's doing educational style, leadership development topics. And him and I talked about why, if certain things that we talk about are so important, why aren't we not seeing them at the highest levels of the Navy? And it's kind of what you were just describing, where it's there's a breeding out process that has to happen over time, where I just don't think the types of things and the type of change that we want to see in the mess will happen until you're a CMC, and until a guy like me is a fleet, or the MCPON or whatever. And that's never going to happen for anybody that's getting hyped about that, because I'm retiring. But someone like me in my age group that's thinking the way I'm thinking about the things that I'm thinking about, because that's what another thing that I've drawn from that, talking to other chiefs, and they think the same things I think. And so it's okay, well, if we all think the same thing, why isn't it different? Why isn't the organization doing these things differently? And it's because at the highest levels, you've got guys that are not in our generation, right? It's a different group of people thinking a different way. I think a little bit about it might be I don't know what it's like to ascend to that nosebleed seat level of leadership and how you get there. And I don't know. I'm hoping to talk to somebody soon about it. It's just really hard to nail their schedule down, but cause I've talked to Paul Kingsbury a bunch about it, but it's to get a current idea, I'm trying to get one of those people on, but it's I don't think the things that we think are important are going to be important at an institutional level until somebody like you is there, right? And I think you'll see those things, but it's going to be a really slow turn, right? Big ship, huge bureaucracy. It's going to take a long time for that thing to point in the direction that we want it to. And then by the time you're there and you're turning it the way we want to turn it, it might not be the way that the people that are young chiefs want it to be turned either. So it might just be a cycle based on the giant bureaucracy that is the Navy. It's I don't know, maybe connectivity and information transfer will happen so much faster that by then we'll all be in alignment. I don't know, but I think that a big part of it is I hate talking about generations and using those types of labels, well, this generation thinks this, and it's they're all individuals. And yeah, I get some groups of people will be generally on the same page about certain things, but I don't buy into the generation, this generation thinks this way. But I think that there's generally some groupthink at certain age groups and experience levels and whatever, where a certain generation, for lack of a better word, of chiefs think certain things are important and we could do better in these areas, but they're not in a position to make that change at an institutional level yet. But once they get there, I think we'll probably see a lot more of that stuff become important. But yeah, I'm weird about it, because it's I see a lot of people so you see the MCPON has a Facebook, and he's pretty active on it, and and Instagram, but it's a lot of official things. I'm sure a lot of people are doing most of that for him. And I don't know if he understands it the way that you understand it, and younger, junior sailors are Jesus. They're
right.
I can't even I watch them do things with phones that I'm just what?
Yeah. And some of them have these their own TikTok accounts too.
Yeah.
I follow like a lot of like junior sailors accounts because some of them are just hilarious,
Yeah.
and they are just, I just can't like, I can't make that stuff up either. Like the way
Yeah.
they're super creative.
Yeah.
But some of them have these like serious like talks, and
Yeah.
just communicating with their own junior sailors, and and amongst their peers, and
Yeah.
it's motivating to see
Yeah.
that. And I'm like, as much crap as we get for, when I say we, and I'm going to use this like the TikToking community, as much crap as we get, we have such a big reach that, like, I could read comments all day on all these different people's like pages, and like, hey, you inspired me, hey, thank you for your support, like, thank you for this. And in reading that, and that's just not on my page, this is on all these other, like, these first classes and second classes and third classes pages. And some of them just like, some of them that they don't even know, I watch their videos and they inspire me. And it reminds me of like, man, this is why I do what I do. Like, this is why I'm the chief that I am. It's because sailors like this. And it's motivating. So I think social media is a platform. Obviously, it's never going away. Right. And I think that we should utilize it more in a way. I mentioned this in one of my comments, is that we made my video be viewed over 250,000 times on this one post. It was shared everywhere else. I don't know how many views are on all those other pages, but on this one specific post, over 250,000 times it was viewed, shared over 1,000 something times, comments up the yin yang, and it got so much attention from this one video, this 59-second video that I made. And if we can take something like that and make it go viral, like, why are we not doing things to make ourselves better as a Navy?
That's what's hilarious to me. So I was watching, I forget what it was. There's some like official Navy YouTube channel for something, and I forget what it was, but they had some videos about, it might've been the Navy app locker stuff or something. I was doing research for an episode I did on that, just letting people know that that's a real thing, which a lot of people don't know that's real. And don't know what like functionality it has and everything else. And there was videos, I want to say it was for that. There were videos that they linked to, like, this is how you how you create My Navy portal access on your phone without your CAT card. Like, you can do that. That's a thing. You have to like register and do all this crap and download this Okta.
Just learned something new.
Yeah, like right. And no one knows about it. And it's because they're not leveraging social media in the way that they should be. Because if you handed a second class an iPhone and said, hey, go TikTok, here's the parameters, we trained and briefed you on the social media policy, so be professional, but like, go do TikTok things and get the awareness out there that these things are real, it would work. Like, they would do it. And so like, but what we have is the videos that like describe the apps, and then like have like some of the, this is how you make these things happen, like 149 views on YouTube. And I'm like, and 5 of them were me, because I was like going through trying to get the links to work and like watching them, and because I wanted to be thorough. So it's like, clearly we're not doing that great of a job leveraging the platforms. If your YouTube channel, I feel like this is like super bright. It was like bothering me, and then I looked at the picture of me, and then I was like, why is that so bright? I'm not used to having video. I'm a rookie. Yeah, it's like they're clearly not taking full advantage. Like, there was a time where, and I don't know if he was running it or not, but Grant Kahn like was doing some job in DC where he was kind of like the social media guy, because he piloted the programs for Navy recruiting, where he was going around the entire fleet for Navy recruiting, like training them how to use social media to recruit, which of course they should be doing that. And then he was like running the US Navy Instagram account. And like, there's a bunch, I don't know if you saw any of them, but there's a bunch of stuff where like people were laughing at like how savage the US Navy Instagram account had become, because like he was doing it like, it was all professional. But it was like, he would just kind of like professionally troll people when they would like try to make fun of the Navy. And it was really good. It was really funny. It was getting reacted to. It was getting shared places. Like I'd see a little like screenshots of the responses on Reddit and that like a ton of interaction there. So it's like, that's the whole point. Is like people are paying attention to the Navy's Instagram account. So the stuff that gets posted on the Navy's Instagram account, people are looking at, which is the whole point. So it's like, if you handed an iPhone to a second class and said, go, after you briefed them on all the stuff, it's like, that should be a thing. Like I'm surprised nobody's talked to you about being like, hey, we got this new job for you in DC. Like,
I know, right?
They should really consider it. I'm just saying, like it, like
who do I gotta talk to for that job?
For real.
Sign me up. Sign me
for
up.
real. But yeah, there's just so much there because of like, if all you consider is the amount of screen time each one of these kids being junior sailors, and I'm just talking about junior sailors, but even me, like I spend time on my phone. So just if you consider just the amount of screen time, it's like, that's where you're going to reach them. So why are we not investing more in like trying to leverage that tool to get a lot of this stuff done? And they kind of are like, but it's so slow and clunky and doesn't seem to be in touch with the actual user base they're trying to reach. You know, like they're trying to, hey, we're going to make your smartphone access your service record. Neat. How many junior sailors log into their own PF before they're eligible for chief? Like ever. Like who they don't care what's in their own PF until they're a first class eligible for chief. Like they don't even know how to get into it. So what are we, I mean, occasionally there's like some hyper motivated second class that's like thinking ahead, but I only know that because I was at Dork. But I'm just like, no one's thinking about that when they're at E5 and below. So it's like, what do we like? How are we leveraging? Because there's the Navy app blockers, like kind of awesome. Like there's some really cool stuff in there that's super useful and like mostly functional. Like there's still some clunkiness to it, but it's pretty all right. And like barely anyone knows it exists. I'm probably the only guy besides the creator that has every freaking app on his phone because I just download everything, right? Except all the chiefs have nav admin viewer, but I don't even know if that's part of it. Anyway,
or the uniform one.
Yeah, uniform regs definitely have that. But like the Navy Cool one, everybody's like, where can I find my bibliography? I'm like, on your phone. Download the Navy Cool app, and it's all there. It used to have hyperlinks to the references that were unclassified too, but for some reason that's different now, and it's annoying. But anyway, kind of last question is like, and we talked about this previously about how I think there's a 0% chance you're not going to be not just like a way better person, but like a way better chief and leader and whatever because of this experience. So like the whole, like, if you could go back and change it thing, I think it's a stupid question, but what have you learned? Like how do you think you've gotten better already? And I'm sure you're going to continue to learn lessons from this as you go, but, and draw on the experience, especially because like the hardest stuff we go through is often the stuff that we draw on the most to like develop new leaders and take care of our sailors and whatever. But like, what do you think are the biggest lessons learned so far for you?
So the first thing, like you kind of mentioned, would I change it? So I've gotten that question a million times from, other chiefs, and even junior sailors have asked me, my friends, even my family, because my family kind of, found out what was going on. My mom's like, why are you doing all this social media stuff?
Yeah.
And I'm like, you wouldn't understand, Mom, but but I would not change what I did. And I think that you could relate probably to this, is that I have always said that if I could reach one sailor, then we've done our job. We've done our job. And the fact is, like, I've reached thousands, and
in a good way.
I've had
like positive interactions, mentorship, giving them what they need.
And this video also did something that I never thought it would. I've had chiefs reaching out to me saying thank you. I've now been able to have actual conversations with my sailors. Like, sailors come up to them and they were talking about the video, and now this opened up a door
like a
for
bridge.
them to have some sort of actual conversation where, sailors were like, hey, can you explain, this whole thing, like how you look at it as a chief and things like that. And then the chief now was able to explain stuff on our level, something that I guess they haven't been able to do.
Yeah.
Communication, I want to say, is probably one of the harder things us as humans deal with, is tone and facial expressions and being just approachable, and then being able to have open conversations. Sometimes we're just not able to do those things.
Yeah.
And my video has been able to help chiefs and their sailors connect in some weird way, even if it's them talking crap about my video. I don't care.
Yeah, who cares?
It's been able to have that door. And
yeah.
I would not change it. The one thing I did learn about myself, and I'm still like, I just realized this actually a few days ago, so I'm glad that we kind of waited to do this, was I didn't realize like how resilient I actually was.
Mm-hmm.
I'm very hard on myself.
Yeah.
I've always been my worst critic. I think we all are most of the time, but I've always looked at myself in this, like, you know, I know I'm sensitive. I know, you know, looking at me, you wouldn't think that. A lot of people, when they look at me, I'm at work and I have my uniform on, either it's my cop uniform or my military uniform.
Yeah. I
have a very stoic RBF face, and and if you don't know what RBF is, Google. But you know, and the people who know me know I'm approachable. It's just a face that I have. But underneath all of my uniforms, I have like this big mushy heart, and I'm very hard on myself. I'm very critical on myself. And for a while, I was kind of critical about this video. Not that I regretted it, because again, I know that it reached people. I was hard on myself because I felt like I let people down.
Yeah.
But then I started looking at it, and again, like I said, just a few days ago, I was like, you know what? Like, I'm stronger from this. Like, I was able to get talked to a way I've never been told, like, kill yourself. I've never been told, you know, there was other words, like, you know, besides the rape comments that really got to me, like those ones, like, they don't know the experiences I've had to say those things. And there was a point, and, you know, I don't like showing vulnerability, but I've learned to be very more transparent since this too. Good. Is that I am vulnerable, and the vulnerability of it is that I was hurt. Yeah. And I was hurt because even on the platform that I trusted, that female page I mentioned where I had the most support and I loved it, and those women, I owe them my life. Like, they had my back tremendously, like a lot. And but on that same page, somebody, I don't know who, they don't know who, and if they're listening, there's some, call me, but let's have some words. But they screenshotted my vulnerable post because I had so many people reaching out. I couldn't message everybody back. I couldn't. And I felt bad because I know that some people were worried. They're like, have you heard from Christina? Have you heard from Christina? Yeah. So I went on that page. I was like, hey, I appreciate you guys, blah, 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 blah. And I started saying, like, I've been crying. You know, I feel like crap. Yeah. And somebody screenshotted it and sent it to the dude that had that 250,000. Yeah. And he posted it on his page, and it was getting shared again. And so I had this big breakdown to where I turned my phone off. I sat on my bed. I cried. And it wasn't even because of the video. It was because I felt hurt and betrayed. And now my vulnerability was out for the world to see, because everybody knew me as Chief D'Arienzo, the strong female chief that just gets shit done. And here she is talking about her crying and feeling and having feelings and stuff, right? Damn, Chief has feelings. And I was like, oh, I cursed. This whole time I've been good.
Yeah, you did good. You just did it back to back too, but it's fine. I'll bleep it up.
I didn't even realize it. Sorry.
It's all good. I did it earlier.
But you know, I was like, dang, man, the whole world now sees that I'm vulnerable, and it killed me. Yeah. And but like I said, just the other day, I was like, you know what? Like, I'm now stronger from this. Yep. It's okay to be vulnerable. And that's something that I've been able to talk about is being able to just be yourself. Like, we have feelings and we're human, and it's okay to cry. It's okay to be upset. It's okay to be hurt. Out of all of these things that I got, you know, all the bad stuff, all the bad words and comments, not once did I ever stoop to any of those people's level. Did I want to? Sometimes.
That's awesome.
I did.
I don't know if I would have. I don't know if I would have held out. I probably would have flamed somebody.
There was only one comment that continuously kept coming up, and it hurt me. Was not even hurt me, bothered me. Was that people were like, she needs to worry about her own sailors.
Yeah.
And I was like, hey, shipmate, and it's another chief, but like, hey, shipmate, like, they are my sailors again.
Yeah.
And
fundamentally,
if they're coming to me, if they're coming to me,
maybe
why aren't you going to that chief?
why aren't you worried about your sailors?
Exactly. Yeah. Why are you worried about this chief who's taking care of a sailor compared to that chief that obviously can't take care of their sailor, or maybe something's going on. Maybe they don't have a chief. I'm a part of a command that hasn't had a chief in 4 years.
Yeah.
Both of them. My sister command TACRON 12, which that's one I'm the SCL over, and then TACRON 11. Both of them have not had a chief really in years. And so maybe these commands don't have chiefs. Maybe they don't have, you know, maybe some of these profiles that reach out to me, no picture, no username, identifiers, and they reach out and ask these questions because this is their way of doing it and getting their answer that they hope to get anonymously. So I would never take it back. Again, long-winded answer. I would never take it back. I would never want to change it. I'm hoping, you know, once things settle a little bit on my deployment, as you know, some of the things that have been going on, once things start to settle, I'm going to just start coming back, you know, getting back hard at it and posting the funny videos. And I'm able to do the question videos because they're 1 minute answers and I don't have to come up with a skit or anything. I just answer truthfully. But I'm not going to be anything other than me. And I'm going to continue to do my TikToks. I'm going to continue to reach out to sailors and do my lives when I can. And, for those that don't like it, keep scrolling.
That's the name of the episode now. I was going to ask you, like, hey, what should I name this? It's going to be keep scrolling. That's awesome. So I randomly, I thought about it, and shout out to Jeff Bayless. He's going to love this. And I might have mentioned it to you before, but you're talking about vulnerability. Have you listened to Brene Brown ever?
No.
Oh my God, look her up. She's an author. Okay. She has some podcasts on Spotify too, but her books, she has a TED Talk that you can find on YouTube that'll give you a really good idea of what she's about. And then she did have a special on Netflix. That's the first thing that I watched. But Jeff recommended her books, and good Lord, she talks about she's a social worker. She's like a doctor, I think, or a PhD or whatever. I don't know the difference in social work. And then she's a shame researcher. Shame and vulnerability are like her jam, and it's just. Check it out. It's so good. Her books are I think the Power of Vulnerability is the one the first one I listened to. Dare to Lead. She's got a bunch of books, and all her content is incredible. And I think it'll resonate with you a lot. She's really, really cool. Good. Cause Jeff referred me to it, and I was just like, yeah, all right. Cause every time I talk to Jeff, I walk away with a reading list, and then but that one was one of the, it took me a while to get to it because I had other stuff I was doing and reading and whatever. And then when I did, I was just like, whoa, one of the few books I can say literally changed my life, blew my mind, changed the way I think about a lot of stuff. So highly recommend that. Anything we haven't talked about?
No, I just appreciate your time. I know that we've been trying to do this for a week, and Dubai time, your time, it's just been a little hard, but I just appreciate, when I first heard your podcast, because a junior sailor had reached out to me on TikTok and sent it to me, and he was like, hey, they're saying this stuff about you. I don't necessarily agree with it. I just want you to know. And I was like, oh, okay. And I started listening to it. And like I had mentioned, I haven't stooped down to nobody's level. And I'm not saying your podcast was horrible. It wasn't. But there was just some things that were being mentioned that I was like, I had typed up a whole thing
Yeah, you told me
to respond. And then I erased everything and I just said, reach out.
Yeah.
And, and you did. And, which apparently you had already reached out on my Instagram. It just doesn't notify me. But,
Yeah.
I was like, damn, like he's really being like considerate. And like I had mentioned to you, there was other people that had reached out for me and wanted to do podcasts and wanted to do interviews. And look at Chief Darian, so all popular wants to do interviews.
Yeah.
But no, I've had a lot of people reaching out for interviews, but the backstory to those people were, they were truly bashing me. Yeah. And I don't think that you're doing this for views or likes or anything, or not views, listens, or anything. But, they were going to do it, for that, for their views, for their profiles. And I wasn't down for it. People have been telling me like, hey, start a podcast. I didn't even know what the heck really podcasts were.
I know a guy that could
and you know a guy. Yeah. Because ever since this whole TikTok, I started TikTok about a year ago.
Yeah.
And and like I said, I never in a million years would have thought this is where I would be at a year ago, and but being able to talk to you and then to be able to be very frank with each other, and you're honest, I'm honest. And I think that's what it means to be a chief, is to be able to be honest and be able to take that honesty. And, it doesn't hurt my feelings. Like, yeah, you don't think I can rap and you were upset about me, what song I chose, and other chiefs that have told me, like, have said to my face, like, I straight up effing hated your video. Yeah. I've had chiefs and senior chiefs tell me that, and master chiefs too. And I just look at them and I was like, that's okay.
Yeah, you're allowed
I was
to
like,
hate it.
That's okay.
Yeah. And why is it like, that should be normal. I say that about the podcast all the time. I'm like, if you like vehemently disagree with every word I've ever spoken and you want to talk about it, hit me up. dgutspodcast@gmail.com. We can talk about it. Like I'll have you on the podcast and we'll talk about it. Like, it's fine.
Right.
Yeah. And I've had a lot of the coolest conversations I've had were Reddit listeners that at first wanted to punch me in the face in public. And now, like, then they like, he actually wants to talk. And then it's like an emotional reaction people have, like we talked about earlier. And then it's like, when I'm like, well, let's talk about it. And they're like, huh? And then like he actually, cause they're just assuming they're lumping me in with this like caricature of a negative chief that they have in their mind. Right. And then but then when you're like, no, really, let's talk about it. And they're like, wait a minute, there's something else going on here. Like, and then I'm just a human, like, weird. I'm just a person that has feelings and thoughts and doesn't. Yeah. Yep. It's wild.
So, I mean, that's all I'll say about that. I just liked the opportunity to be able to talk and be able to get, the story out there.
Yeah.
As to, cause everybody wondered why. And it's just nice to be able to, now this is out there. If people want to know, I could just say, go look at this podcast.
Yeah. I appreciate you like taking the time to do it too. Like cause I think it's important. Like, I think it's important that this discussion happened because like, there's so much more to it. You know what I mean? And it was like, as soon as I started talking about it on that one podcast, I was like, there's so much I don't know. And there's so much, once I find out, regardless of what the answer is, there's so much to learn from it. Like, there's so much that sailors, and I kind of had put together in my head that I'm probably going to hear this. And I'm like I knew you were getting destroyed. Like, I was like, I can only imagine what your inbox looked like. So like that part of it in and of itself, I was just like, and I know a bunch of them are chiefs. So it's like that part I want to talk about that, because that's important that people know that was happening. It's important that people know that that's disgusting and wrong, and like, and the effect that it has on you as a person. Like, just to hear you say that, I feel like will have an impact on a lot of people, and like for them to understand that it's not just this, like, you're not just sending these messages into a void. Like, there's a person on the other end of this, and this is the effect that it has. You know what I mean? And like,
and I don't think people think that way. And if I was, and if I was anybody else, say I was somebody that suffered from depression, anxiety, mental illness, or, suicidal thoughts, and people did all these things. What if, what if I did?
What if?
And I was a human, and I have a family. I have a girlfriend with kids that I'm a part of the family, and I have my mother and my sister, my nephew, my nieces, my brother, what if people who love me, people who care about me, and when we do these things on social media, why are you hating so much? You must hate yourself so much that you just have to hurt somebody else. So I just think that, as people, we need to be better. I mean, we've been saying that for years, though. Do I think it's ever going to change? I think it's honestly going to get worse with the more social media, and people are at home, and they have nothing else to do. So I think it's ever going to get better.
Yeah.
I don't think it's going to get better.
Even normal, healthy people, if that's even a real thing, even they are they're at home, they're angry, they have lots of time on their hands. So it's just right.
So I don't know, but again, thank you for this. And I just want to say, and this isn't to get any more followers, but if there's people who listen to this and they do want to reach out, they can find me on TikTok. You probably can't spell my name, but Chief Christina D'Arienzo.
I'll put it all in the show
title,
notes,
but
people can find you.
But at any time anybody ever wants to reach out, I'm always available. Anybody. Yeah. And I hope maybe we could do this again. I'm sure there's going to be other topics to talk about.
To say that I fully intend on dragging you back on here more than once, especially just we talked about the reserve stuff. There's a whole bunch of there's a whole bunch of reservists listening that I feel like you'd have a lot of insight that I'm just not. I don't have that skill set. I just don't have the level of knowledge or experience. But also just leadership stuff. We'll talk about social media stuff. I don't care. We'll do TikTok things. I don't care. I'll put my voice on TikTok. I ain't scared.
Put a mask on.
Yeah. I could get a luchador mask or something. That'd be fun. I keep joking with my wife about that.
Oh man.
Yeah. No, I appreciate it. This was awesome. I'm pumped. I'm glad that and we talked about it before. I'm glad I got to know you. I'm glad I kind of understand a little bit more about who you are and what you're about, and that it's so funny to me, and it makes me happy to know that I was so wrong about who you are and what you're about, and what I expected to find on the other side of that TikTok video when I first saw it is total polar opposite of what I actually did. And I'm super pumped that it ended that way, and that we got to do this, and that people are going to get to listen to it, learn from it, and ask you questions. And then, I mean, if I get questions for you, I'll just direct them all to you. And
sweet.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to the reaction and stuff, but also just the people's ability to understand what it was all about and get the lessons learned out of it. All right. I hope you guys enjoyed that. I definitely did. I got to do that a few times. Actually, we talked once just to kind of let her know what I'm all about, and she can see kind of if it was something she wanted to do or whatever. And we just talked through all the stuff ahead of time, but we got to know each other, and I'm a giant fan of her as a person and as a chief. I told her during the interview, but I'll say it again. I'm really excited that this ended the way that it did. I arrived at this conclusion that I didn't think I would. I wasn't looking at initially. I didn't look at it like the person behind this was such an awesome human. You know what I mean? I thought it could go a number of ways, and I try to stay as open-minded as I possibly can. But when it first happened, I had a pretty negative reaction to it, and I've talked about that a bunch, and you heard it during the discussion. But I can't imagine a better ending, and I've never been so happy to be wrong about something. In that my initial reaction was so wrong about how she arrived at producing that video that everybody saw, but also just about how awesome of a chief she is, and how lucky the universe is to have her doing what she's doing, but also just even being on TikTok. She does a lot of really amazing stuff on that platform. And I think if you went and watched it, which I highly encourage you to do, you can't come away with any other opinion than all she's trying to do is help sailors. And part of it is an entertainment component where she does these little skits. Kind of like a lot of there's other personalities out there. Like there's a comedian, Che Lee, and I don't know if I'm saying that right, so I apologize in advance. But he's hilarious, and everybody loves his videos. And he has a huge following, and it's like this sketch comedy type stuff a lot, making fun of the things that are easy to make fun of in the military, and that the type of stuff that we make fun of ourselves. So if you're unaware of it, and I'll put the link in the show notes, but it's Chief Christina D'Arienzo on TikTok. That's her. You just search that name as one word, and you'll find her on there. And some really great videos. She does like Q&As, like all kinds of cool stuff, very much in the same vein as this podcast. And that's what was so cool. Like we're approaching this in a lot of the same ways. She's just using a different mechanism, and I think it's great. And I really enjoyed a lot of her content. There's some funny stuff on there, man. I feel really fortunate that she trusted me to get her story out there, and just to come on the platform and share all the lessons learned with you all, because I think there's so many to process that I'm still processing. I mean, I just recorded it today as I'm recording this outro, and there's just a lot there, and I'm sure I'll talk about it some more as far as the things she went through as a result of the video, the why we feel the need to react so viscerally, the fact that so many chiefs actually did and did it in such a negative way. There's a lot there. There's a lot to unpack. I'm still flipping it over in my head, so I'm looking forward to talking about all that as well. If any of you want to reach out to either me regarding this or to Christina, just hit me up. Don't Give Up the Ship Podcast at gmail.com. You can Facebook message us, Don't Give Up the Ship Podcast, or you can hit me up on Instagram or Reddit at dgutspodcast, or just dgutspodcast on Reddit. And I can get you in touch with her, or you can reach out to her via the TikTok platform if that's something that you're on. But if you want to reach out to her, talk to her, ask her questions, and I mean that in like a leadership development and or supportive mechanism. Like, I'm definitely screening those phone calls, but based on this story. But yeah, just you can interact with her in that way on TikTok, or hit us up, and I'll pass those questions along. It was awesome. I feel privileged to have been involved in the conversation. I'm pumped that we got to do it, and I look forward to talking to her again. I fully intend. I've talked to her more than once. I've let her know, like, I'm not letting you get away so easy. Like, I definitely plan on involving her in future stuff. So with that, if you want to support us, go to dgutspodcast.com/shop. We've got bills to pay like everyone else. This is not free. It's also not for profit. But if you want to go on the website, you can get a t-shirt, stickers, stuff like that. We get some buttons, magnets. You get something, and then it helps us pay the bills for all the subscription fees and everything else. Preferably not out of my pocket, but that's generally what happens. So, but if you want to, you can get some stuff to help support the podcast, dgutspodcast.com/shop. And that's it. That's what I got for you today. Thank you so much for listening, and don't give up the ship.